In a quiet suburb in Melbourne, tucked away in a small cul-de-sac, there is a house that will take your breath away. Well, it's a mansion, really. I've spent many days in this mansion. It was the location for a world I used to live in, called Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. I played the fearless and glamorous 1920s detective, Phryne Fisher.
Make a note of all the guest names, Dot. Yes, miss.
I loved filming here. I always wondered about the history of this fabulous place, the people who have lived here.
I think we would have moved in just before New Year's Eve of 57.
Fairy tale mindset. You've got to go explore, and I was...
You're Bohemian, you can't look after yourself.
To start again after the war.
I used to walk around this house in between scenes and think to myself, oh, what stories there are to tell here. Labassa. It's a miracle that this house has survived. In 1887, a multi-millionaire bought a modest home on masses of land and gave instructions to transform it into the most magnificent house in Melbourne. And transform it did, again and again. From a lavish 35-room family residence, the jewel in the crown of the marvellous Melbourne era, through booms and busts and world wars, Labassa has lived many lives. In the 1920s, the opulent mansion was divided into 10 flats for people of more modest means, including socialites, war heroes, and even a silent movie star. And in the 1950s, a significant new cultural era in the building began. After World War II, the entire top floor of Labassa became home to Jewish refugees. The Apfelbaum family moved into Labassa in 1952.
When I saw first Labassa, I got in a shock. And I said, thanks God. And one of the ladies came to me and she said, touch the walls. You'll see practically like gold. That was heaven. Absolutely heaven.
The Apfelbaums lived upstairs in flat 4. Rachel grew up here from when she was a baby.
Wow, I'm here. Can't believe I'm back here after 70 odd years. Wow, wow, wow. Still remember everything. Beautiful lead-lined windows. My favourite banister. This is the one I used to ride on, and I think my cousin rode on that one. It's hard to fathom that we actually lived in this magnificent place. It's sad that Mum, who's 99, isn't able to go up the stairs. I'm sure she would have loved to see the apartment, but I'm going to see it for her. I'm so excited to be back.
When the Trowrig family moved in across the hall, Eva was a toddler. They lived in flat 3.
Well, I was an only child, so it was fun just having people around, sliding down the banisters.
Although the Jewish families on the top floor came from different European countries, they shared language.
I couldn't speak English at all, so we spoke Yiddish.
I remember this beautiful big room and the windows. Wow.
I mean, it's not small, but my memory was that it was this enormous room.
Labassa still holds signs of Jewish life here.
This is the indentation of a mezuzah, which my father would have put up.
A mezuzah is a small decorative case, and inside is a scroll inscribed with verses from the Torah.
Wow, it's still there after all these years. Amazing. Kitchen, yes. Oh my God, I didn't realize how tiny it was. We had a little table here. It was 2 chairs.
The families kept religious high holidays and cooked in kosher kitchens.
Always used to cook and always used to bake. That was the traditional Friday Shabbos.
There was a dividing wall in between the flats that didn't go all the way up to the ceiling. This came in handy when one of the families had run out of, say, carrots. You could just ask your neighbour.
I knocked and then throw it.
Otherwise, she would have had to go down the staircase, up the staircase to go to their front door. So I guess it was easier to just chuck it over the partition. Yeah.
The residents in these upstairs flats had arrived in Australia with nothing. They had survived the Holocaust.
They took us to Auschwitz. They took my mother to Auschwitz.
Some people didn't want to talk about it. Some people wouldn't stop talking about it. You know, for some, they just said, I've been through it, I don't want to talk about it, I want to forget about it.
We've been completely down in our mind, in our heart. Slowly, we'll build our life up to life.
The post-war baby boom meant that there were more children running through the hallways of the mansion than ever before in its history. When Jewish immigrants first put down roots in Victoria, it was a long way away from Labassa, on the other side of Melbourne. In 1949, the first Jewish day school opened in St Kilda, and the move to Melbourne's southeastern suburbs began, to become what is now affectionately known as the Bagel Belt. The Gruners arrived from Hungary in 1957. Susan was 11, and her brother Peter was 15.
I loved our time here. I remember our old phone number, LB4575. Wow, here we go. This was our place. I made friends really easily. Everybody was just lovely. Nobody asked me, what's your religion? They just said, can you play Skippy? And we used to look for hidden treasure. At the time, I didn't realise it was the whole house that was the treasure.
Susan left some of her own childhood secrets here.
I would have been, well, more than 11 and a quarter, old enough to know better. It's here. Oh, here it is. So there's a woman in bathers. There's a face. Here is the beginnings of a face. I didn't finish it. And there's some flowers. Oh, gosh. So many memories. I don't know what I did yesterday. However, I know what I did, 40, 50 years, 60 years ago.
In 1936, the owners of Labassa built an Art Deco building next to the mansion, known as the Willis Flats. Jewish families also lived here, and the children played together in the shared grounds. The Whites lived in the Willis Flats for 12 years.
We were privileged because we were the only ones that faced into Labassa. So we got to know the people in Labassa. So from that point of view, it shaped our lives.
When Noam's family moved in, Helen had no idea that these neighbours were also Jewish. Then she saw Mrs. White preparing kosher meat for the family.
Mrs. White, and she put salt on the meat.
And Mrs. Applewell nearly flipped.
And I looked at her. She looks like a Christian.
Because she just couldn't believe it, that we were observant in any way.
Then she said, "This is aus Fleisch." Ja. Die bist Jiddisch? Ja. Du bist der Hayid? Ja, und ich bin Hayid.
While most of the migrant children at Labassa didn't have grandparents with them, there was an honorary grandmother in the mansion. Mrs. Brearley, the resident caretaker.
Mrs. Brearley always said, "Don't run, don't run." I remember her being an elderly lady, quite tiny, quite strict, and she kept this whole house spick and span.
I can still see her. She had an apron. She always wore an apron.
Mrs. Brearley, whatever you ask her, she could be there. She looked after us very well.
I can't remember if she had a stick or a strap, but there was always something that she, would tap.
But she was really nice, and she'd make, I think, even had Christmas parties or did things for us as children, and we had fun.
She was a friend. She was a lady. She was a lady, yeah.
Mrs. Brearley was an abiding presence and keeper of secrets for over 43 years. And it is largely thanks to her that Labassa is in such great nick. By the mid-60s, the families who'd moved in after the war had worked hard to buy their own homes. Eventually, the Apfelbaums, Traurigs and Gruners moved out of their beloved Labassa.
When I move out, I cry. I cry. We grow up. It was really beautiful.
The Whites were one of the last families to move out. For his last few years in Labassa, Noam rented a small study room in the tower. From here, Noam had a bird's-eye view of the new wave of residents flowing into the building. Another cultural change was about to arrive at the mansion.
The place was almost being completely taken over by these Bohemian-type people. They were almost a different species. But they were interesting to look at, and things were changing.
By the late 60s, the global counterculture movement was in full swing. This generation wanted to explore new ways of living. Share housing provided an alternative to traditional family life, and a new type of independence was possible. Word of the magnificent mansion spread throughout art school campuses and young creatives. You could rent a flat for a modest sum, and 10 or more students could live there.
There used to be magnificent parties here where, the Doors would be playing and, there'd be strobe lights going and people in their crushed velvet would be dancing. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I want to live here, because it was just such a groovy place to live.
Hello, place. Bathroom.
I lived in flat 1, which was the servants' quarters, but even the servants' quarters were pretty schmick, but it was cheap. The entire flat was $27 a week. So this is the late 60s, early 70s, where Melbourne is a ferment in terms of creativity. Most of the people that I shared with were part of a theatre group called Tribe. We were known for taking our clothes off quite a lot in the interests of art, so it was very, arty, writhing kind of stuff. We were all working at La Mama in Carlton and were real hippies.
Many of the people who came to Labassa were drawn to the house because they appreciated its beauty, its aesthetic. So we had a lot of musicians. They loved playing in the music room, where we are now. And we had grand pianos in the corner, we had violinists, and lots of painters as well.
So no one was working in a bank, really, although we should have been. Some of us should have had a real job.
The new Bohemian residents were able to live the way they wanted to at Labassa. Play music at full volume all night.
So people came and went, and then there were shifting populations of people who would move into the ballroom, you know, ride their motorbikes and park them in front of the ornate fireplace and let the oil drip onto the floor and smoke enormous amounts of drugs.
One young man used to ride his motorcycle up the stairwell. Well, they loved to party, and Melbourne was very much a party town. So, you know, people would ring up and say there's a party on at Labassa, and they'd just turn up.
By this stage, Mrs. Brearley, who'd been the caretaker for 43 years, had left. There was nobody looking after the household, and the real estate agent rarely made inspections. The mansion was at risk of falling into decline.
I would have been 20, 21 when I moved into Labassa. I was a naive country boy. I'd been playing music with a group of guys in a band, and can't even remember who told me about it, but I ended up here. Coming through my old bedroom and thinking of Boris, who lived in the cellar, painting the ceiling of that room black and putting little star dots on there. All those memories come flooding back.
Randall didn't know it then, but Labassa would become a hugely significant time in his life.
I had a wonderful girlfriend, Antoinette. She introduced me to film, introduced me to the visual arts. She was a student at the Victorian College for the Arts. So, yeah, whole new world. She was wonderful. Opened my eyes to a lot of things.
Randall's flat had access to the cellar, which Antoinette used as her studio. And like other Labassa residents, she also left something of herself behind.
Well, how about that? Antoinette was renowned for her animation, and these three pieces are almost like an animation sequence. Pretty amazing they're still here. There was a trigger to leaving Labassa. At that stage I had a new flatmate who was a morphine addict.
When the flatmate decided to break into a chemist for drugs, Randall went along. What followed was a dark night of the soul in a police cell that would change the course of his life forever.
It was at that time that I began this movement to becoming a Christian and realised that a lot of things needed to change. It was much better for me to put Labassa behind me and move on. And I rather unceremoniously dumped Antoinette. It was pretty shoddy.
For Jane, leaving Labassa was purely down to show business.
It was a real wrench to leave Labassa, but my life was more and more in Carlton, at La Mama. That was where my life was.
Amazingly, despite their wild parties and overcrowding, the Bohemians turned out to be excellent custodians of Labassa. The mansion's original glory remained largely intact.
The hippies had a sense of ownership of the house because they saw it in humanistic terms. You know, the house has got so many layers of lived history, and some people even saw it as a living, breathing being, you know, that was mystical and restless, and other people saw it as a conscious entity. So people related to the house in a very personal way.
In 1980, when the last owner of the house died, Labassa came up for auction. The public were worried. If it was sold to a private owner, Labassa could be lost forever. After a last-minute donation, the National Trust of Australia stepped in to save Labassa.
We successfully bought the place for $282,500, which at the time put the organisation under a huge amount of financial stress, but it was for the right reasons. We have Labassa.
These days, supported by an army of volunteers, Labassa opens its doors to the public every month to learn about the history of the mansion.
So many stories, so many people have been here. So when you think about it, most recently 700 people have lived in this place. And now hundreds and thousands of people have been through Labassa as visitors with the National Trust.
As the people came flooding through the mansion, so did the stories. And a project called Labassa Lives was created.
Labassa Lives include stories that people have written about themselves, their observations of the house, and how it existed at their particular period.
It was through Labassa Lives that Randall was able to reconnect with his past love, the artist Antoinette.
As I began to reflect on the way I'd treated her, I really wanted to get in touch with her and just express my regrets and apologise and ask for forgiveness. And I was able to do that.
5 years after their reconciliation, Randall received the dreadful news that Antoinette had passed away.
Well, it came like a bolt out of the blue because I hadn't heard about it. Vicky Shuttleworth let me know that Antoinette had died.
Antoinette, she always saw Labassa through the artist's eyes. There will always be a little bit of Antoinette here.
The big thing is just the overwhelming sense of gratitude that there had been that reconciliation and, you know, forgiveness.
On a classic Melbourne rainy Sunday, the Labassa family are coming home.
Rodney, welcome back.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome.
There's going to be a reunion of some of the tenants, and we're all going to have an opportunity to exchange experiences.
Hi, Noam. Good to see you.
People are coming from all over Australia, anyone who ever called Labassa home, and they're bringing their families.
Welcome back. Welcome home. Come on in, Susan. Good morning. Howard. Welcome, Howard. It's nice to have you come through the front door today. How are you?
Do I need a
No, you're a special guest today.
But you've got to wipe your feet this time. And no smoking in the house.
Times have changed, Howard.
Thank you.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Back to Labassa.
I still remember things unbelievable. Look at the wallpaper.
It's the same.
Look at the wallpaper. Exactly the same
colour.
This is apple bomb.
Oh. Hello, Eva.
Hi, how are you?
I believe I lived in your old flat.
That's what I believe.
You moved out,
and you
we
moved in.
I'm thinking of the passage of time
And they were wonderful, wonderful years here. And we were lucky.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Any excuse to come back to Labassa. I think everyone who has lived here feels a sense of ownership of Labassa. It's got a pull on you. It's got a pull on anyone who's lived here. It's like an old love.
I've never forgotten that time. I certainly didn't contemplate what legacy it might have for the rest of my life.
I'd like to introduce you to Pat. Hello, Helen.
I would like to see Mrs. Brealey's family, yes.
Pat Brealey, I used to be my grandmother. Was
And Harold Brealey.
And Harold, he's my father.
So I'm sorry, I meant to bring the photo. I still have the photo of Mr. Brealey. Because my cousin and I, he was cut out today, but we played. No, I don't remember. That's Mrs. Brealey. Yeah.
That is Mum.
That's you.
Yes.
Hello, gorgeous.
Labassa must have left a very lasting impression on my subconscious, because it is the place that I revisit the most in my dreams.
I think the great significance of Labassa is that it is authentic. You can see the layers of history. It's not just a building, it's a story. The humanity of the house has survived.
With everyone back home again, it's time to capture the latest moment in the history of the glorious Labassa.
I'm going to count to 3 and then I want everybody to say Labassa. 1, 2, 3. Labassa.